Robinson Show. Ooh, I'm excited about this conversation today because, oh man, I don't know exactly when was the last time me and this lovely dude chatted. It's been a long time, and I know
I think
everyone's
it's about a year.
Yeah, it would be gaining up on that if it's not a year, it'd be pretty close to. We have got so much to talk about. I've got the one and only Omega Luke. Luke, how are you? It's we've just chatted for like 10 minutes or so in a pre-chat, but how are you?
Yeah, all things considered in the world, Josh, I'm doing all right, mate. I'm healthy. I'm happy. So yeah, I'm good. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm good again, all things considered. I'm okay. I guess we're hanging in there with everything. We're not
Yeah.
used to this kind of life the last few months.
No.
It's been very different. But I mean, adapting and just kind of keep on keeping on doing what you're doing, really. That's all you can really do. Otherwise you'll go kind of insane. You we've got a lot. We'll get to your content and stuff in a minute, but I've just been watching you from a sideline kind of perspective and just being like, well, Luke was here at the end of Brainbuster, and then all of a sudden it was like, boom, he's over here doing his stuff with football stuff and your subscribers on YouTube, and we'll get to that whole journey in a second. I know people are like, well, what has Luke been up to? Well, if you've been living under a rock, he's been doing a lot of stuff. But a lot has changed in both of our lives, I'm sure, in the last year that we've really been since we've chatted. One thing that I do have to, I don't think I've said to you like directly. Congratulations, you did have a child.
Yes. I did. I'm a father now, which is quite scary. Yeah.
And
Who would have
in
thought?
this time, like with all the restrictions and COVID stuff and all of that, you had this like personal milestone that you're just like, well,
Yeah.
the world's kind of shitty, but my life is pretty good. I'm certain you could say that.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite funny because the lockdown actually happened here in the UK 2 days after he was born. So it was sort of like a blessing in disguise. As bad as the COVID-19
Yeah.
is, what it has actually given me is so much time with my baby that I would never have dreamt of having this much time. Work, originally I was only going to have 2 weeks off, and then I was going to take a couple of days holiday and then have to go back. This is like the 11th week that I've had off now because of furlough. So I've been off from work for 11 weeks. I forgot what my job is, to be honest. They contact me every now and then, and I'm like, oh yeah, I actually have a full-time job. It's kind of going by the day, waking up when I want, waking up when the lad's waking up, and just spending time with him really, and getting to know him. And it has been a blessing in disguise. It's been brilliant because he is wonderful. I absolutely love and adore him, and it is difficult. Don't get me wrong; it's not all sunshine and roses like the early mornings and stuff. He's getting better. He's actually sleeping through the night now. But yes, it's been a bit of a weird time because usually when you have a child, everyone will be coming over to see you, family members and stuff. We couldn't do that.
Yeah.
We've had to see family members from a distance. We've slowly integrated stuff into our lives like that. My dad's a highly vulnerable person as well, so we have to be really careful. And because of those reasons, we've had to really be really careful with the baby as well, because he's also, of course, really vulnerable.
Yeah.
So it's a scary world, but at the same time, I've been in a bit of a bubble for the
Yeah.
last 11 weeks, and I'm thoroughly enjoying spending time with him and getting to know him.
Yeah, I obviously I don't have children, so I don't know what that feeling is like, but I could only imagine that it would just be like, you know what, like, yes, there's a lot going on in the world, but that's what matters kind of right in front of me, and that's all you can
Yeah.
it's really all you can do is just kind of keep on keeping on and just focusing on the things that you can kind of keep control over. So I could just imagine that it has just changed your whole kind of look on life and just how you kind of operate in general. But it is weird how you say like, oh, you know, usually when people have a baby, it's like, oh, come and see the baby and like, you know, come and meet. And it's like, that would be a weird experience to kind of wait for that almost and be like, I can't wait for everyone to come
Yeah.
see him and all of that. And then
Yeah.
just being kind of like, oh, okay, we'll FaceTime you, but I guess it's not the same.
It's never the same now. Like, I mean, my partner's dad didn't see little Max for like the first 10 weeks of his life. And when would that ever be a thing
Yeah.
in a family where there isn't any difficulties for imagine? Like, we haven't got any difficulties. We
Yeah.
see so sad quite often when there isn't like a lockdown. But because of him working overseas as a lorry driver and stuff, we've had to be really careful, and he hasn't wanted to sort of like endanger us. But thankfully, he's had like a couple of, now that the lockdown rules have sort of like eased off slightly, we've been able to sort of introduce him for the first time, like 10 weeks later. Like, this is your grandson who's now 10 weeks old.
That must be just the weirdest experience. It just,
Yeah.
but I do, I know that I probably DM'd you or told you on Twitter, but big congratulations, because I see him on like Snapchat and stuff and on your Facebook, and I'm just like, Luke just seems so happy, and that's just a good thing. So I wish you all the best with all of that lovely stuff. So for anyone that doesn't know who you are, which I don't know why they wouldn't if they're listening to me, but let's take what happened. So you were doing wrestling podcasts. That was kind of your shtick, I guess you'll say. Is that for anyone that doesn't know, how long were you doing wrestling podcasts for before you ended?
So I started, it was just the July 2018. So it would have been 2 years this month that I started recording stuff. Because I remember I recorded loads in June and then had like 5 episodes ready to go at the start of July. So 2 years ago, roughly about 2 years ago now, I went on Simon Miller's podcast. Obviously, the guy from What Culture.
Yeah.
The why, here's why, and the head pat stuff. I went on his podcast. That's how it all began. And he sort of said, "Can I get you back on? Really enjoy it. And you're quite good at like the talking. Was very comfortable." So I was like, "Yeah, that's awesome. Like, he wants me back on. That must be him. I did well." And the second time, like, I had a chat with him after, and he was like, "You should start your own if you're into it and stuff." And that's what really kicked it on. And so then that's basically when I started. So roughly about 2 years ago was when it all started off for me.
Yeah, so you kind of navigated your ways through the amount of wrestling podcasts, or just podcasts in general, that there really is. There's a lot. And you just kind of found your kind of groove and just kind of went with it. And then obviously, everyone kind of knows the journey. We all kind of became closer with Brainbuster, and all of that kind of happened for however long it went, like 6 months or whatever. It wasn't even 6 months. I don't even think that it was in motion for, but we were talking since like January of 2000. What are we in? I don't know what year, 2019. And that's just kind of led into Brainbuster and all of that, and you were doing all of that stuff, and everything seemed normal, really, and it was just kind of like, we're just going through the motions, and you had your shows, you had your show, and then you went into a show with Wilf and everything like that, and then everyone knows the story of that. I ain't gonna drag that through the mud. So you kind of, you know, it's weird to see when something ends and then where everyone kind of goes off to. And all of us, except with the exclusion of you, went on and did our own podcast and, you know, kept on keeping on. And you were just kind of like, I remember you saying in maybe a DM to me, or just in general, you were just like, I don't know, maybe I'm done with this, because you were kind of on the fence about wrestling podcasts, I remember, in the last few months, weren't you? Like, I'm kind of losing my kind of itch for it.
Yeah, so I obviously had the fantasy booking side of things, and I started, it started becoming more of a chore instead of enjoyment, doing the fantasy booking matches. And because there's a lot of preparation that I'd have to do, even though I wasn't the one actually start doing the fantasy booking itself, I had to listen to 2 fantasy bookings and then judge it and then record. And it did become more of a chore. And it sounds funny me saying that now, because it's a lot less work than what I actually do now for the stuff. But that's besides the point. So I sort of like fell out of love of it slightly. And then Wilf, obviously with Brainbuster, he also sort of felt the same with his podcast, and he was getting fed up of contacting wrestlers and not having anything in return. And I also was getting that, because I like to do interviews every now and then. It was a lot of work trying to get people on myself, wrestling wise. And I just thought, you know what? He kept on going on. Maybe we should do a dual podcast and co-host each other. And I thought like he was always joking, but in the back of my mind, I was like, it wouldn't be a bad idea, to be honest, because it would take a load off me.
Someone
and,
to bounce off of too. It changes it. Yeah,
exactly. It's very hard to do a podcast by yourself, and you know yourself that. I mean, I know you as well. Like, you're like me. You can talk the best of people just by yourself and just yap. But when it's yourself talking to just a microphone for
It gets a
ages,
little
not
boring
reacting
for
to anything.
yourself. Whether you can
It
do it or
does.
not is different for whether it's
Yeah.
entertaining to you. Because I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest, we were doing podcasts. You know, people are listening, of course, but like you're doing it. If you don't like it, then there's really no point. It's not like you're making money off this thing. It's not like millions and millions of people are listening and counting on you. It's like you got to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
this to kind of keep yourself kind of going.
Yeah, and when the whole brainbuster thing happened and Wilf ended up like up and leaving,
Yeah.
that was like, well, my show's gone then. Everyone else had their show, which they
Mm-hmm.
could still continue for week on and everything like that. And I was obviously we spoke about maybe trying to get Brainbuster to continue, and I did say to everyone in the DM like, if you all want me to do that, I will happily try and message Wilf and see if I can continue, and that will be my side of the project, and maybe I'll integrate some sort of wrestling podcast in it as
Yeah.
well. But I think I didn't do that I was thinking that not in the way of, oh, I really want to carry on a wrestling podcast. I think I wanted to do that because I really cared about Brainbuster. Like, I love the fact that we had our team, and the team that we had was amazing. And
Mm-hmm.
and everyone knows that. Everyone agrees with that.
Yeah.
And the people, the fans that we had that loved listening to every single show, or one or two shows a week, they just knew Brainbuster was like a really nice carefree place for people, and that's what I loved about it. And I
Yeah.
really felt like we were building something. That's the reason why I wanted to continue it, not because I wanted to continue wrestling podcast myself.
Yeah.
So when everyone was like, "No, I think we're this is it now. We're going to go our own way," or we found different networks, I thought to myself, well, that's me done with wrestling podcast then, because although I had my YouTube channel, that was becoming a bit of a burden as well. I was falling out of love with that, and I thought that's me done with wrestling content, because outside of that, I don't really have anything to go to. And of course, I had already started my other stuff, and I was thoroughly enjoying it. And I thought, well, maybe it's time to just knock it on the head, really.
Yeah, it's I remember that, and just kind of like I think we were well, I'll speak for myself, but when that ended and it was just kind of like that to me, for me personally, that was like that happened and it's like a sign, okay, this should end. There shouldn't be a
Yeah,
continue. It wasn't anything to do with like maliciousness, well, at least not from my part. It was just more so like I'll just keep doing what I'm kind of doing and just see where it goes, because there's been many times within the last since I last chatted with you that I'm like, I don't know if I really want to do this anymore. And I was kind of like trying to find little things that were working. And I was like, I don't know, am I enjoying this anymore? And then other things happened, of course. But it was the end of that. And then you kind of went off and you were like, I'm kind of done with this. And then how did this all kind of, I know you said you're kind of starting, you know, other stuff prior to the end of Brainbuster, but how did this kind of, because it just seemed like you were starting this and all of a sudden you were like blowing up. That's how I see it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I was very lucky because I started my gaming YouTube channel because it was just supposed to be a gaming YouTube channel. I wasn't necessarily supposed to stick to Football Manager.
Yeah.
My idea was that I could just play the games I love playing the most, and just not worry about views or anything like that. I didn't really care about that. I just wanted to make content because I enjoy doing that.
Yeah.
I enjoy that side of. I like the creativeness that I could bring out myself through doing that. And I thought if I could play games that I like doing at the same time as well, it's almost an excuse to play these games at the same time. So I thought I'll do that. I started Football Manager, I think, around about June time, and then by mid-July, I had FM Scout knock on my door and say, "Would you like to make content for us?" And I used FM Scout back in like 2005
Yeah.
for like helping me with the game. And I was like, hell yeah. Looked at their channel, see how many subscribers they had at the time. They had like 38,000 subscribers. I was like, I definitely want to start making content for you, because I was making it. I had a channel and I used to get like 9 or 10 views per video. And like 3 of them were like Mags on 3 different accounts. So I'm sure of it. And I'm sure Mags was the only one who ever left me comments. So I was
Mags.
buzzing. Yeah, love Mags. But yeah, and I thought, yeah, let's do that. And that sort of, I believe my first video was mid-August that I did for them. And that's on the end cycle of the game. So we never really got that many views at that point. We were getting like 2,000 or 3,000 views on that channel because they hadn't done anything. The reason why I got brought in was because they hadn't released any videos since February. So they were like, we need to reboot the channel. It's gone dead. We need to start over again. We need consistency. That's what the guy was telling me who owned FM Scout. We need consistency. We need to keep this going all year round. And that's what I've always had in my head. Remember, any good ideas, think of how to split them into 2 or 3 so that we can spread it across the year.
Yeah.
So that was like a reboot of the channel. I wasn't expecting anything from that. Picked up a small following, and then the Brainbuster thing happened like September. And I thought, right, that's it. Let's focus on this now. Let's focus on getting this right. So it sort of got to end of October when the new game was ready to come out, and I could already sense that things were changing. My channel started picking up quite a few subscribers. I surpassed my wrestling one, and it wasn't just Mags watching me anymore. It was a lot more people that I've never spoke to before, because I'm used to, I suppose, like the wrestling podcast situation. A lot of the people who speak to you speak to on Twitter every single day,
Mm-hmm.
or it's other podcasters, because that's a lot of your audience. They like to listen to podcasts. They
Yep.
like doing podcasts, so they listen to you, and that's fantastic. In YouTube sense, the people who are listening to me were randomers who've never found me on Twitter before. They don't. I'm pretty sure I only have about 100 people who actually like Football Manager on my Twitter still,
Mm.
and I get loads more views than 100, and that's the situation now. And it's like I noticed things were picking up, and then the new game come out, and that is just when it skyrocketed. It's the 1st of November the game came out. I did the video on the day, and I think that video itself has nearly 150,000 views on itself, and
Heck.
my channel since then has just skyrocketed because of it, and I'm forever grateful, to be honest, because hey, it's worked out a treat, to be
It's
honest.
worked out well for you.
Yeah.
I know that I see on Facebook or wherever, Twitter, whatever it is, I just see like, you're like, this video's got this many views, and you're just like, I don't know how. Like, I'm just like, I'm kind of gobsmacked, and it's like, it's just been cool to see your progression, because it's just been kind of like, okay, starting to get a few more, and then you kind of watch, and you're like, okay, it's getting more and more and more. But it's funny how you say about like the difference between YouTube and a podcast, or those people. You're kind of like in, I don't want to say a bubble, because there is always new people kind of trying to listen to podcasts, but you're in that bubble of the consistent people that listen to you every week, or wherever,
Yeah.
whenever you drop shows. So you're like, I know I've got this core audience. It's hard to break further than that. With something
Yeah.
like YouTube, I've noticed when I stream on Twitch, I get more people that I just don't know that are just popping into a Twitch stream
Yeah.
just to say hello because they like that game or whatever, for whatever reason. It's more of the kind of randomers that then be like, oh, okay, you have other content, I'll go and check out your YouTube, or I'll go and check out your Twitter. When podcasts, I find it's like they're seeking you out. They're like, okay, I like wrestling. Oh, this person does a podcast. I do a podcast. I'm going to listen to this podcast just because
Yeah.
I know who you are, kind of deal. When
Yeah.
YouTube and Twitch is like, I like this game. I don't really necessarily know who this person is, but I might like this person. So like,
Yeah.
it's different. You're getting more strangers, I guess, in a sense, watching you play Football Manager than you would be listening to your show about, July 3rd episode of Raw. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
it's different. And I guess for you, I know that we're in a bit of a weird time just in general in the world, but were you falling out of love with wrestling itself as well on top of that?
It's a good question, and it's a yes and no, because I was falling out with WWE, and I've
Yep.
always had a love-hate relationship with it since I sort of grew up, I suppose. Because I mean, I've heard you say it plenty of times. Like, some of the crap that sometimes they put out is so difficult to watch,
It's bad.
and they don't help themselves as a company, like draw people back in,
Oh
but
yeah.
at the end of the day, they're still the biggest company. You need, as a wrestling podcaster, you need to keep an eye on it. So
You need to have knowledge of it. You need to be
yeah,
aware
you
of what's
know
going on
going
it,
on.
because you fall
Yeah.
behind. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was always a thing. However, I always really enjoyed NXT. That's
Yep.
never changed. I have stopped watching it since there's been no audience, just because I find it so difficult.
They've got an audience back now. They've got like
Yeah,
wrestlers in the crowd.
I've been meaning to try and give it a go.
But it's only been the last
but
couple of weeks, so
Yeah, but definitely, I think the whole Brainbuster thing left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth
Yeah.
with wrestling.
yeah, it would.
At the same time, the weirdest thing happened is that I actually started wrestling. So
Yeah.
I started training. Like, it was almost like 2 weeks. I think it was 2 weeks after, because if I remember rightly, the week that Brainbuster stopped was the week I had kidney stones, and the week I had kidney stones was
Oh
the
my
first
god,
week
yeah.
I was
Holy
supposed to
shit.
go to training. So I had to miss it. Then the week after is my first week. So I almost started doing wrestling straight after I stopped actually doing the wrestling content, which, by the way, my coaches can't stand the fact that I stopped just before I actually started because I could have given them a bit of a platform.
Yeah.
Hence why Kat is now doing all the interviews. Thank you very much, Kat. So that's also a weird sort of transition, like stop doing the content for
That
it, but
is
now actually
weird.
start doing that.
I
Yeah,
didn't put two and two together because it would have been. I remember you posting on Twitter like, "I'm going to do wrestling training," and it's like, "Oh, okay,
yeah.
Mister. I don't podcast anymore, and now I'm going to go start wrestling."
Yeah, it was super weird. And like to be honest, I've never really thought about it that way, but it is genuinely like a week
Yeah,
after that all happened because
it's weird how
uh,
things happen.
I remember exactly where I was when I was having the Twitter feud with Sean Ross Sapp at the time.
Oh yes,
Uh, so that week was when I was supposed to go to wrestling training. So that
you were
is
very teasy that week. It was a rough
God,
week.
yeah, that was bad week for Luke.
Yeah, not
Kidney
a.
stones, how argument, it didn't go down well.
I've never had kidney stones. I never want to. I've heard they're very painful.
Yeah. It is easily the most pain I've ever been in my life, and it's so bizarre because you literally can't do anything about it to ease
Mm.
the pain. I can't be like, oh, I need to lie down because this is so painful. I'd lie down, be like, my God, I need to stand up, and it's just back and forth from that for hours until it finally fades. So that's how bad that was. But yes, it's a weird transition, and go back to like the original question. Some wrestling I never fell out of love with
Yep.
until roughly around about when the COVID-19 started.
Mhm.
That's when I stopped watching it.
Gave you an
But
excuse almost to be like, well, I don't want to watch this then.
yeah, I gave AEW a good try at the beginning. It wasn't for me. After I sort of started enjoying it again, around about January, February time. Always loved Progress. Progress, I've been very vocal, is my favorite. New Japan, I watched it all the way up until the Wrestle Kingdom, and unfortunately, I haven't watched after Wrestle Kingdom, which is my bad. I should have, to be honest. But I just that yeah, I've sort of gradually stopped it, I suppose. But I watched Mania. I made sure I watched Mania
Yeah,
because I think you have to
you have to.
as
Yeah,
a wrestling fan, you have to, no matter how much you're watching at the time.
yeah,
I had to watch Mania. It was all right, I
yeah. Mania
suppose.
was fine for what it was with no fans. It was fine. It had some good, cool stuff.
They killed 2 nights. That was a nice touch. I
Yeah,
think give everyone a chance, I suppose. So yeah,
just kind of breathe and kind of just watch Mania in that time that we're in. Especially that was kind of like the start of lockdown for a lot of people, and it's like, well, I'm in my house anyway, so let's just kind of pay attention to this, I guess. But it is, I don't know, it's not surprising for me to hear people are like, there's really no reason to kind of love wrestling at the moment. It's very hard to kind of
yeah,
have that connection. I'm just kind of watching wrestling because I'm already in it and I'm kind of just watching it. But if I was like out of it or kind of on the fence about wrestling, this isn't a great time to be being like, hey, you need to watch this because, you know, even with a small audience, it's still a small audience. And it's like, it's
yeah,
not, wrestling relies on that so much. I think a lot of
yeah.
sport, we're talking about a lot of sport in our pre chat. You know, a lot of people are calling for sport to come back and a lot of sport is coming back. But I know when I'm not a big sport guy, but I watch here and there. But wrestling, well, sport in general relies on that reaction.
Atmosphere.
I feel
Yeah,
the atmosphere. That's a good word to kind of
yeah,
describe it. Is because even with something like footy or something like cricket, everything relies on some form of. It just looks
yeah,
odd. There's just an
yeah.
oddness to it that I don't love.
I think as well, because I had started the wrestling training at Reach, what they do when you're in the academy, they get you fully involved in every show. So
hmm
in the actual main card show, where occasionally academy people are on there, you are the ones to turn up at 12 o'clock in the day, even though the show starts at like 6, to set up the ring. Occasionally we have a seminar with one of the wrestlers. So you're always fully engrossed in what Reach are doing now. And I think the reason why I sort of fell out of love with wrestling, like mainstream, is because my favorite love of wrestling is independent wrestling has been taken away.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Progress had to
Yeah.
stop
Shit.
like middle of March, maybe a little bit earlier. I can't
Yeah.
remember when their last show was. Reach last show was February, and they couldn't do obviously any more because their next show after that was supposed to be May. So they were going on like a 2 month break, was what their schedule sort of is every
Yeah.
every other month really. So they couldn't carry on. So I sort of like been stripped of my love of wrestling, of
Yeah.
independent wrestling, and my little bubble of reach, because it sounds very cliche, but when you're in a wrestling academy, as good as Reach Academy is, because I literally love everyone in there, you're in a bit of a bubble and a bit of a family.
Yep. Yeah,
And
I get
then
it.
I was stripped of that. So that's my link to wrestling, I suppose. And haven't got that at the minute.
No, I understand that. Sometimes I get in my own bubble of just mainstream wrestling and I'm like, wait a minute, there's all this independent wrestling that isn't happening. Like there's no shows running with no fans because there's no point in that with independent wrestling. It's not like they're on TV or they have deals to oppose or whatever. So sometimes I just genuinely like, wait a minute, yeah, a lot of people can't watch wrestling at the moment because it's
Yeah.
not there for them because they watch independent wrestling. Um, so I understand that, and it's kind of almost like an unplanned little break with wrestling, and just kind of see,
Yeah.
watch other things and do other things while you're at home and whatever it may be. But it's kind of cool to hear your kind of take on everything ending and then kind of going into what you're doing now. Now I noticed you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the last maybe 2 or 3 months, it's really been when I've been seeing a lot of posts from you like, oh, I've hit this many subscribers, I've got this many views, I'm kind of, it seems like it's like escalating very fast and it's like, whoa, like what's
Yeah.
happening here? How is your mind kind of reacting to that in the last few months? Just being like, how does this video have this many views? How do I have this many subscribers? Like, how does that make you feel?
It's so bizarre. It's very bizarre because I'm used to numbers of like wrestling podcasts where it's like, oh, I hit 50 downloads.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. And then the fact that I used to think about 50 people have downloaded and listened to my episode, that is surprising. Now, if you were to tell me I only got 50 views in the first hour, I'd be like, what?
You'd be like, oh,
Only
it's
50? I'd be
bombing.
disgusted. Yeah. And that's unfortunately the nature of the beast now. Like when the new game came out, FM Scout, the company I work for, we battered out a video each every day, me and the other content creators. So we were doing 14 videos a week. And
Heck.
at that point, when it's a brand new game, that's when everyone's then interested.
Yep.
So we were doing those videos, and it was a whirlwind. And I remember saying to my partner, like, I need to make sure I nail this because one, it's also going to be good for us money wise because I do get paid for the views
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I get for FM Scout. I get 50% of the revenue that my videos make. So that's a really good bonus to me. And it's an incentive to do the best that I possibly can. And FM Scout have been brilliant with that. So I used to say to her, like, I managed to get this amount of views in the middle of August and it paid me this much money. Imagine what I can get in November and December when I know I'm going to be making way more videos. Because my first paycheck for FM Scout, I was like, oh, I just got paid this just for making videos. Like, that's class. That's so
Rich.
good. Yeah. It was like 40 quid and I was so buzzing with it. And then it's like, they were like, oh, in November when the game comes out, we need you to make as many videos as you possibly can physically put out. So I'm thinking, right, if I'm doing that, I also need to make sure I'm taking advantage of the views and stuff on my own channel. Because what's the point in me just putting out content for FM Scout when I could be like, yes, still doing that, but at the same time going, oh, if you're enjoying this, I've also got my own channel, and then drag the people over there as well. So I said to my partner at the time, I was like, this next month might be quite difficult because I need to hammer out as much stuff as I physically can. And she's brilliant with it. She was like, do what you got to do. Like, I used to just go and lock myself in the room and just record for hours and hours, edit for hours and hours, and make sure I had a video pretty much every day
Yep.
on FM Scout and my channel. So where I was like getting pissed off of doing a video, doing a podcast once a week, which was taking me about 2 hours, I was now doing about 4 hours a night, making sure I had about 10 videos a week at least to make sure
Heck.
I had all of that.
You
So
gotta like it
it was
then, you know what I mean? Like, you've
yeah,
gotta, if you don't, you know, to say to someone, hey, you've got to do this amount of hours every day and you've got to produce this amount of videos, you have to like what you're doing because
yeah.
otherwise you'd be driving yourself completely crazy.
At the same time, the buzz that I was getting from, oh my god, this is like snowballing at me.
Mm.
Because I remember I remember the very exact number. I had 327 subscribers when the game came out of FM20, and then that was November the 1st. By December the 4th, I've reached 1,000 subscribers. So that was how quick that that little rise was.
Yeah.
And I thought that was absolutely baffling. I thought, wow, and I thought that's the beauty of the first month of FM. Now, thankfully for me, Football Manager has done like this year. It's done the biggest numbers that it's ever done. And then when lockdown happened, it decided to make the game free to play for 2 weeks. That
Wow.
was the biggest blessing in disguise ever, because all of these new people who were thought, oh, I'd like to play Football Manager, but I don't want to spend 30 quid on a game I might not understand, because it's a complicated game if you've never played it. It's simple now that I play it, like year on, year out. But if you've never picked up the game, you're like, what the hell is this? It's very complicated. So making it free to play, they doubled the numbers that they have, the record numbers that
Yeah.
they've ever done. So I remember the day that we went up for my baby to be born, for my wife to be induced. I said to her, "We can't go up yet. I'm just about to edit this video, and it's going to be massive," because that day was when FM's Football Manager made the game free to play. So I said to the boss, I'm going to make a video of how to play this game from the very beginning. Like, if you did not know anything, if you were completely new to the game, and I did that video, and that was March the 20th, and now that video has over 100,000 views. So just in
That's
2 months,
crazy.
100,000 views, yeah. Because so many new people have played the game.
Yeah.
And I said at the start of the video, do not watch this video if you've played the game before, because it's going to be boring for you. This is for brand new people. And not one person has wrote in the comments saying this is boring or what. Like, they understood that. It's only new people. So that just goes to show how many new people have watched that. And I think, like, not only has my channel snowballed, but FM Scout itself has
Yeah.
snowballed, because I mentioned earlier they were on 38,000 subscribers when they asked me to join. They've now just surpassed 75,000 today.
Wow.
So it's over double the amount in less than 6 months, and that channel's been going for 7 years.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so it's crazy numbers, and I think they're the third biggest FM channel now. There's only two people above them. One of them is my favorite, a guy who I love, and then another one is a bit uncatchable at the minute. Jack, he's just surpassed 100,000, so he's a long way to go. But like, it still baffles me when I think about those numbers
Yeah.
compared to what it was podcast time.
Yeah.
And like, I kept setting myself goals of, like, my own channel. I'd like to be at, I think I remember saying I'd like to be at 2,000 subscribers by the time my baby's born. I did that in like February, I think. So I was like, right, I need to be 3,000 subscribers by the time he's here, and I didn't quite get that, but I almost did. And it sort of just keeps going, and like, numbers wise for the FM Scout channel, like, I think I had a goal in mind. I remember when I first clicked on the channel, the first thing I did when they asked me was click on videos and most popular to see the highest viewed number that they've had on the channel. And at the time, it was like 140,000, I think, and then it got to like 150,000 just from, like, gradually.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, oh, what a lucky man that guy is to create that video, and he's got the highest number of views on that channel. I am now that guy, because thankfully for me, a video that I did back in November has surpassed that, and it has 162,000, I think, the last time I looked. So it baffles me to think that amount of people have watched that video, and I can't get my head around it sometimes. I really can't. It's baffling, to be honest.
It would be like, you would look at it and you would go, well, that must be wrong. That can't be right. Like, you just, because that's how we always are with anything that we do. I mean, when you started wrestling podcasts, 2 years ago, was there any part in your brain that thought, oh, in 2 years' time, I'll have, the highest rated YouTube views on FM Scout? So how do you go about that and just go, oh, well, I didn't really plan for this. This is kind of just, well, it seems it's just kind of just happened. It's just kind of fallen into your lap, honestly.
I was very lucky. I must admit, I was so lucky, because, like I said, my intentions were just to have a gaming channel. I was planning on playing so many different games. Now I don't feel like I can do that, because if I start playing the games, people are like, what are you doing, mate? You're an FM guy. Like, what are you doing? So it's a good job. I actually really enjoy the game. It is my all-time favorite game. So I am very lucky that I had, I think, about 60 subscribers when they asked me to do it. So I was just very lucky, and I made sure that I took the advantage of doing that and making sure my content is amazing for them, so that people are like, oh, I like this guy. I'll come over because I mean I've got a Discord now, and the people that I speak to every day in the Discord did not know me before FM Scout before I
Yeah.
started doing that. So they've all come across from that, just thinking that guy seems all right. I'll check out his actual stuff. So I'm very grateful for
Yeah.
FM Scout for not only financially helping me because I've had some really good months thanks to the views I've got, but also like with with the exposure that they've given
Yeah.
me. Like I'm known as the FM Scout guy. Well, there's two of us, but I'm known as one of the FM Scout guys, so that's quite cool in
That'd be a
itself.
cool
And
little pat on your back, like I'm that
yeah,
guy. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
and I'm also like really proud of the fact that we've managed to build that channel to the point
Yeah.
that it is now. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm almost like I think the best thing about it is FM Scout as a YouTube channel is not an entertainment channel. It's actually an educational channel. So the guys who are above are what I do on my own channel. They play the game itself and then react to it. So it's almost like a reaction
Yeah.
kind of stuff, and you actually play it yourself. Whereas FM Scout is an educational, it's how to play the game, what this player's like, what tactics work, and how to do scouting setups and stuff like that. So it's very educational based. So it's weird. Like I really like the fact that on videos that I've done, I get comments going, "Oh my god, I never knew that," and I've been playing the game for 15 years. That's so rewarding to me. I love it when I get a comment like that because I think, oh, I've done my job. I've actually helped someone make the game better for them or make them enjoy the game. And lately, I've been because we are so far along in the game now. We've basically done all the educational parts of how tos. It's more of a case of this player's really good. Have you noticed him before? And I'm having to do hours of scouting to find players. Now I'm doing these videos where it's like, oh, I found this player for dirt cheap on the game that you've never heard of. I guarantee you haven't ever heard of, and I did this with him. And people are like, I've never seen him before, and thanks for the video and stuff. So it's rewarding the content that you're given instead of an education, instead of an entertainment value. It's educational, and I'm
Yeah.
really proud that we've built the channel up to what it is for an educational channel. I never thought that'd be possible.
Yeah, it's like there is a sense of like pride almost in yourself when someone's like, I learnt this from you. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, thank you. Like I'm trying to, even if it's just one person that's saying that, I know I'm on a much smaller scale than you are, but like it's just, I just honest, like from the bottom of my heart, it's just like so cool to see people like you doing really well in whatever field you're kind of going in. It's just like, this is cool to see. And it's just like, I just watched, like I said earlier, watching from kind of the sidelines. I'm like, look at Luke over here just doing his thing since Brainbusters ended and how we've all kind of gone in our different directions and done our own thing and whatever we're kind of doing. And it's just like, oh, it's just so cool to see that from someone that
Yeah.
you're kind of talking to on a constant basis, and then they're kind of doing their own thing, and you just kind of pop in every now and again just to be like, hi, like, how you doing? Like, and just kind of seeing you kind of, I don't know, just kind of take something by the balls and just owning it, really. It's just cool to see.
Yeah.
So,
On the
congratulations to
same,
you.
thank you. On the same regards, like it's also really cool to see because I think it was even Christmas Eve. I had like a cleanse of my Twitter. I was fed up of still getting tagged in stuff by podcasters, wrestling podcasters that I have never spoke to. Some of them didn't even follow me. Used to tag me and stuff to retweet them, and I used to be like, mate, I have not done wrestling stuff for like 2 or 3 months. I thought, do you know what? I'm having a full cleanse. So I unfollowed so many people.
Mm.
But the lot that I didn't unfollow was the people I used to speak to often,
Yeah.
which was the Brainbuster people and a lot of the people we used to interact with, a lot
Yeah.
of our viewers.
Yeah.
So I mean, we all probably speak to the same kind of people. You guys
Yeah.
speak to the same people now.
Yeah.
And
circle.
yeah, it's like our little bubble of who we had as our wrestling community, I guess. So I kept them on my Twitter, and I just got rid of everyone else. I was just sick of it, and I was like, right, that's it. But it's still really nice now that I still see week in, week out, every single one of the Brainbuster guys uploading their episodes, uploading their videos, and I still occasionally now I go back and listen to something, especially in the lockdown where we haven't had a lot of time to do. I'm in the shower now. I'll pop on a podcast now, and occasionally I like to listen to the Brainbuster people. And it's still really nice to see that you're all doing really well. And I think good. Like the worst thing that would have been is that one of you guys would have stopped completely because you wouldn't have done it from the beginning if you didn't love it. And that's I like the fact that even though I've moved away, I can still be like, oh yes, they're still going for it, and they're still really enjoying making their content and still making people happy every week by uploading their episodes. So I love that still.
Yeah, it is cool. You know, I always say this and I always stand by this. I think Brainbuster ending was the best thing for all of us in a weird way. Maybe not at the time. We were kind of like, well, what now? Like, are we going to continue doing what are we going to do? Like, you were like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I think it was the best time. Like, I would not have the confidence to have my own network of shows now if I didn't go through with Brainbuster and I had all of that and people taking a chance on me and stuff like that. So in that sense, like, from where I was, you know, 2 years ago it's nearly 2 years since I started Reverb, and to see where I am now, it's like, okay, I've come a pretty successful way and just gaining confidence and stuff like that. And I can sense in the stuff that you do and even just the stuff, confidence is like the number one thing, I think, is just having confidence within your own content, whatever you're making, just to keep it like, I put myself into this and I'm like, I'm proud to put this out there. Like, I want millions of people to be listening to or watching this because I feel it's within myself that it's good enough. So I think if you get that kind of sense of your own confidence, without being like an egotistical piece of shit, I mean, there's a difference, but like, you know, having your own confidence, being like, this is good, I want people to listen to this, and not just putting something out to put something out, you know, for lack of a better term. So
Which is exactly what I felt like I was at the end of my content. I wouldn't even, I'm not egotistical wise, like you mentioned, but I used to like listening back to my stuff to think, right, so when I said that kind of thing, I didn't necessarily enjoy it. I think I need to be more like this. And I used to do that quite a lot, especially when it was the fantasy booking matches and stuff like that, because I know at that point of the fantasy booking league that I had was probably the peak of my own podcast. So I used to get like 70 downloads. I need to really be concentrating and make sure, because my understanding, and it's still to that situation now, and it's probably the worst thing for my partner, but the best thing for my content, is that if I have a spare hour, that hour is not me playing the game. It's me, how can I improve one thing on my content? And that is basically what I used to do from the off. I used to think to myself, right, I created my intro, I created my outro, I've recorded my episode, I've edited my episode. What can I do now? I think I'll improve my intro. And that's what I do for the next hour. I do a different intro. And the next time, I think I'll improve my outro. And that's basically what I used to do. So I used to listen back and think, that's what I need to do now. And I think that is really the fundamental of doing that. And I fell out of love of doing that with my podcast. And I was just like, I'm putting it out and I'm not even proud of it. And I think that's when you sort of slide down that people stop listening because they can tell I don't care anymore.
Yeah, it does go through. It goes through whatever you're doing, whether it's gaming on Twitch, whether it's making original content on YouTube, whether it's podcasting, whatever you're doing, if people can tell if you're not in it, people can just kind of be like, he's just going through the motions, or she's just going through the motions just to kind of do this. And that's always going to shine through. So I think being entertaining yourself and being kind of like within yourself to go, okay, I want to do this, is step one. And then actually, you know, there is effort that goes into whatever you're making. You have to put effort in, otherwise it's going to kind of show that you put no effort into it. And I think that's kind of just being okay and being proud of your content, and that kind of just shines through, and you'll get there one day, you know. Be like Luke and you'll be all famous and stuff, you know, and stuff. So. I know you don't do a lot of podcasts anymore. You've only done a few since Brainbusters ended, haven't you?
I did one. So the only thing that I have done is Royally Rumbled tried to bring back fantasy booking. So they said to me, they first asked, and Royally Rumbled, of course, were my champions and my mates. Like, I love Royally Rumbled. Those two guys are fantastic. And they said to me, like, we want to bring back fantasy booking. Would you be okay with that? I'm like, totally. You guys are the perfect people to take that on, because you were my champion. So who better to judge the stuff than you? So they were like, okay, we'll only do it if you be the first episode. So I'm like, right. I've decided that I'm not going to do any wrestling content anymore. That was me done. Until I start getting wrestling interviews for me actually being a wrestler, I wasn't going to do it. So I thought, right, okay, I'll do it for you guys. So I did my fantasy booking for them. But other than that, I've done nothing until you today, really.
Oh, honored. Well, suck it, everybody. I got the Luke interview and you
Yeah.
didn't. So, what I want to end on, because I will never ever forget this, and I don't know if this is going to pop you or not. About a week before Brainbuster ended, you were going through kidney stones and everything like that. And I said, Luke, when we get a chance, I would like to do an episode on Friends. We have never had a conversation about Friends on a podcast. For the next 10 minutes or so, I want to talk about Friends with you because I know you love Friends. I love Friends.
Yeah.
And I remember that conversation, and obviously everything happened, and then we never got to do an episode on Friends. And I want to have an argument with you about who the best friend is, because it's
Oh.
Phoebe, and I'm not taking any other answer.
See, for me, it's not Phoebe, but I couldn't tell you who it is because I flip and flop. I'm one of these people who are like, I'll watch an episode, I'm like, oh, by far, Joey's the best. Joey is the funniest. And then I'll watch another episode where Chandler's amazing, and I'm like, Chandler's the best. Like, Chandler's the funny guy. Why wouldn't I like Chandler? He's the Michelangelo of the Friends. He's the best. But then I watch another one, I'm like, yeah, but my favorite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle is Raphael. Who's Raphael of Friends? And then I watch another episode, I'm like, I'll tell you what, Ross is pretty funny. Ross is pretty funny.
They do
and
all
then,
have their moments, I'll give them that.
Yeah, and it's one of those situations, but I think Phoebe and Rachel have never been the ones that I've always considered the
Rachel's
best.
never been for me. I'm always like, nah,
No.
Rachel, I'll give or take, whatever. She, of course,
Yeah.
they're all stronger together, and I would never be like, oh, I don't want this person here, but
Oh,
like, out of everyone.
Yeah.
You
couldn't
have
drop any of the characters. Yeah, you've got to have them all, and they all have their best moments.
Yeah, Rachel has some, but Rachel probably has the least, I think, of like those good moments. Like, she has a few little like, haha, Rachel. The one of the best Rachel moments I think ever. You know when Ross is unagi and she says salmon skin roll.
Skin roll.
That is like the one time I've like howled laughing at Rachel. I'm like, that was funny, Rachel. Be like that, Rachel. Usually she's just complaining, and I'm like, okay.
Or she acts dumb and stuff, which it's entertaining. Don't get me wrong. I also really like it when she's trying to impress Joshua, and she brings out the cheerleading outfit and busts her tooth and stuff. Like that's prime Rachel for me. That's one of the best ones, definitely.
I think I like Phoebe so much because I always draw to characters in shows that are kind of like free spirited, and she is very that. Like, she's just very like.
I think you're sort of like in the same category. In that kind of way. I think, like, if you were to look at the Brainbuster lot, you'd be the Phoebe of the Brainbuster.
I take that with great stride. I'll happily sing Smelly Cat any day of the week. What an iconic song. But, and I think, to me, is like, some people are better with others. Like, I like Chandler, I like Monica, but I like Monica and Chandler together. Like, they're strongest when they're together. And I think with Friends, I've watched, you're probably the same as me, Luke. I've watched every episode of Friends. I couldn't even tell you the amount of, like, so many times. Like, and it doesn't get, I know some people, and I agree to some state, like, the show hasn't aged terribly well. Like, there's some themes in the show that aren't really too consistent with what's going on in the world today. However, I still find the humor very funny.
Oh, yeah.
Context away.
Timeless. Timeless humor. Yeah, definitely.
And I think there's some shows that don't have that, and there's some shows that do. Friends is one of those shows that just kind of, they do. I mean, reruns, I don't know how it is for you guys in the UK, but reruns are still primetime aired here.
Like, every day. There's Comedy Central, and I can guarantee I will turn on Comedy Central now and Friends will be on. Yeah. And if it isn't on now, it will be on the next hour. It's pretty much every other hour. Yeah,
that's how it is here too.
They'll just keep going from series 1 to series 10. And if I'm watching telly but there's nothing else on and I see Friends on, that's your go-to. And if it's on Netflix, you start off at series 1 and you watch it to series 10. You'll pick up another series and then you go, what have we got to watch? Just put Friends on again.
Friends will do. I'm like that with Friends, and I'm like that with Parks and Rec. There's two shows that I can just chuck on and just almost have it as background noise. Like, you just be on your phone or you just be talking to someone, but you want noise on, so you kind of know what's going on. If you had to pick like I don't know if you could answer this or not. I know I can, but do you have a favorite season of Friends in the 10?
Well, that's a good one, and I see the difficult thing is I'm not quite sure. My memory's terrible. What actually series it is, but it's when Chandler and kisses Kathy. When it's Joey's girlfriend. So that's 3 or 4?
I think that's 3, isn't it? Or is it 4?
Yeah. So
It's one of
series
them.
one's the worst.
Oh no, it's
Series one,
trash.
but it
I
always
can't.
is. It always is. I
Always
think
is.
in sitcoms like that, like US Office, the worst.
Oh my
This series,
god, The Office,
the rest is
season one. I always miss that on the rewatch.
yeah,
I don't bother. There's no point.
100%.
Series one of Parks and Rec, trash. It's awful.
Yeah.
But then it
If you're
picks
gonna
up
watch
Jersey
US Office,
Shore. We were talking
yeah,
about that on Facebook. The first
yeah,
season of Jersey Shore is so bad.
because they're all like planted. They don't know how to quite act. No one really
Yeah.
knows what
You don't
plan.
know who they are, and it's like awkward, and it's like the show hasn't picked up its kind of I don't know, its sense almost, its kind of thought process. Yeah,
It's
and it's just
personality.
yeah, the personality. So I think
Well,
I think it is season 3. I think
you're right. Yeah, I think it's season 3 when that happens. That's my favorite series because I think that's my favorite episode. When Kathy's situation's happening, those sort of like 3 or 4 episodes when Chandler's in a box and stuff like that, or she cuts his hair and stuff like that, and just because there's so many other side stories as well that's happening, but I love that episode. And I don't know why I'm drawn to that episode because to be honest, there are funnier episodes, but I just always love that episode.
You have like a connection with certain episodes. It's like, so my favorite episode of Friends is the one with the lottery where they have the lottery ticket, and then brilliant. Oh my god, that is like the bet. They're all together in the one little like in Monica's apartment, and that's where they are. And then Phoebe, I think I broke your bowl. That's like the best thing she's ever said. I just like coo, and Joey looks around. I love that episode to bits. I can watch that episode just all the time when Monica has extra tickets down her bra and stuff like, and in her shoe, and like. I don't know. I just love that episode. So I think that's season 9, I believe. I know the show. I know the show kind of. It went through stages. I think it did peak around season 6 or 7. You know, when Monica and Chandler were kind of getting married, and then Rachel got pregnant and stuff like that. And then, as any show does, by the end, they're just kind of getting towards the end. Season 10 is good, but like, there's certainly moments within it where I'm like, okay, they're just kind of stalling.
I think the best part of season 10 is Paul Rudd.
Oh my god.
He is amazing. He is so
god. Crap bag. Crap bag. Princess Consuela banana hammock. It's like
it is him. But another episode which you reminded me of them with the lottery one that I absolutely adore, and sometimes I think it's my favorite episode, is the cheesecake one where Rachel makes a cheesecake.
And they eat the cheesecake off the floor.
So I can enjoy the view, and I literally make a joke every time. I made that today. So I was going to make a lasagna, and they were like, "Oh, I'm not sure, but I'm using a different sauce." And I'm like, "Well, I'll go eat this in the garden and see if I can do it there." Oh,
that's great. I do like that episode, and I think another one just for. Because I love Phoebe so much, is Phoebe's wedding. That always gets me, and I'm like, that's probably my favorite wedding in Friends. It's like so nice and in the snow, and then the dog like pisses everywhere, and he tries to get him to piss. Make your business, make like that's just a great. I do love Friends, and it's always kind of, like I always kind of look at a person when I make a Friends reference and they don't get it, and I'm like, oh no, I don't know if we can be. It's like, I don't know if we can be very close friends. Like, I won't be rude to you, but I don't know if we could be friends. I don't think we're going to get along too well. Friends is just, it's a great show. And I understand, I don't know if I've come across that many people that haven't liked Friends, to be completely honest, in my lifetime.
So, one of my best friends, the Rock Cry guy, Nev, he claims Friends is awful. And then when I questioned how many episodes he's watched, he hasn't. And I think, how can you say it's bad?
No.
You've never actually given it a chance.
Like, I don't like Seinfeld, but I've watched Seinfeld. So I feel like I can have an opinion on it.
Yeah.
But do you think Friends is the best sitcom of all time?
Yeah, easily. Yeah. Like, occasionally I'll go, my favorite TV show might be US Office, but then I'd be like, well, it's not though, it's Friends. Because else you'd be like, I'll put that on instead. Like, Friends, from when I must have been about 13 when I first got into it. I think it was just ended, and I was like, oh, I really like this show. So I remember back then you couldn't stream it. You couldn't go onto Netflix and have it there. That didn't exist. That when I was like 13, I'm talking like 2005.
Yeah.
But my mum's best friend, daughter, who had just left home, had them all on video, and I was like, can I borrow season 1? And then it would be like,
jackpot.
Yeah, they were like, I'll give back season 1. But like, you don't have season 2 at all, do you? Lovely, thank you. And then I binge it and just keep going back and back. So, That is when I sort of fell in love with it. And I think back then, I was like, well, this is amazing. And I binge watch it and binge watch it. And now I look back and be like, it is easily my favorite TV show of all time.
I think it's the best. I don't know. I go back and forth all the time. There's that three group. It's the US Office, it's Parks and Rec, and it's Friends. They're just my kind of go-to ones. But I think with The Office, for example, is that when I watch that, I have to watch it in order. When I watch Friends, I can just kind of watch an episode and be like, I know what's kind of going on because I've watched it so many times that I'm just like, I don't necessarily need to sit down and watch this from season 1 to season 10 in its entirety. You know,
you'll see the first scene and you know exactly what storyline is happening at that point.
And I think I think it is the best sitcom of all time. I don't necessarily know if it always floats between my favorite and not my favorite, but I think it is the best. I don't think there's anything more timeless than Friends, in my opinion.
The way I look at it as well is, one is how many like references are made on a daily basis of Friends compared to any other TV show. Only US Office really has a lot of memes and stuff that's said about
GIFs
it.
and stuff,
Yeah, but US Office doesn't have its own festival, which comes to the UK and goes to different countries. I went to Friends Fest in Bristol. I travelled 2.5 hours to go to Friends Fest. It was amazing. Loved it.
And it's, for the most part, people know what you're talking about. For the most part. Like, you can say a Friends reference and they're like, oh, you know, Joey said that. You know, everyone knows how you doing. Like, everybody in the world knows how you doing. Like, people just know that.
Yeah.
So I think
and people who even haven't watched Friends know who Ross and Rachel is, know who Chandler is.
And everyone bases...
if you don't know US Office and someone said to you, who's Jim Halpert, you'd be like, what?
Yeah.
You wouldn't know.
Yeah, I understand that. And I think every show that has come after Friends, it's like, this is the Ross and Rachel of the show. Like, there was a lot of people that saying Jim and Pam are the Ross and Rachel of The Office. You know what I mean? So when you're getting based on a certain aspect of your show, it's hard to argue that it's not. You know what I mean? I just love Friends, and I was like, I have to talk about Friends with Luke today because otherwise, who knows when we'll get the opportunity to again. So I'm just like, I'm very much glad we could end this episode with Friends talk. So, I guess this comes to the end of this episode. It's been just great to hear how everything's going for you. It's been a minute, so it's nice to kind of catch up. For anyone that doesn't know, we have each other on Facebook. We have each other on Snapchat. Like, we see our lives here and there. It's just kind of little, you know, hello, how are you? And then it's just kind of, we kind of go on about our day. So it's nice just to kind of sit down for the last hour and actually have a conversation.
Have a catch up.
Yeah, we haven't done it in a hot minute, so we'll do this again in a year's time, and we'll see where. If you're not too big and popular, and you haven't forgotten who I am by then, Luke.
For you, Josh, never, mate, never. There's only certain people I'll come back to wrestling community for. So.
I'm honored. So for anyone that doesn't know where to find you, all of that good stuff, put yourself over, all of that. Where can we find you? What has got coming up? Everything like that.
So you can find me on Twitter at @mega_Luke. I might not be posting much wrestling stuff now until I actually start wrestling again, because I was about to make my debut and before this all happened. So
after COVID.
I sort of had to put the wrestling stuff on hold for now. So it will be a lot of Football Manager stuff. But hey, you might enjoy that. I don't know. But you can find.
And if you don't, you can get Luke. You just get this all the time.
Just there. Occasionally, I'll post a selfie or nice, cute kids for my baby. So that.
Yeah, exactly. If you like babies, then you're fine.
You like babies? Do you like babies? You can follow me on Twitter. That sounds weird, doesn't it?
It kind of does, but it's fine.
Yeah. If you like cute babies, follow me on Twitter. What? But yeah, that's where you can mostly find me. Of course, if you are into Football Manager, come across Watch FM Scout, come across the Mega Luke Gaming, and Twitch as well, Mega Luke Gaming. We're doing some stuff on there as well.
Go and follow Luke if you're not. He obviously, you've heard in this conversation, he likes Friends, so there's that. So he's not a psychopath. It's a bit up on my personality, I must say. Coming soon to Luke's content, Friends. He's just going to talk about Friends, and he's gonna eventually agree that Phoebe is the best, and we'll leave it at that. So, thank you everyone for listening to this episode of the Josh Robinson Show. Of course, you can catch all my other shows that I have here on the Josh Robinson 00 Network. You know where to find me. All of my links will be in the description below. Of course, continue to rate this podcast 5 stars on iTunes if you can. It does actually help. Like, share, subscribe on YouTube, all of that good stuff. Until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace out.